we know from experience and from all the students and, just industry standards that there's certain benchmarks of what we can shoot for in each one of these categories that are not only very reasonable, but very doable for us to hit. And so like we know, and they're down here, that conversion rate of 2.5 to 3, I would even say 3.5 are very doable. And an average order value of $45 to even $50 is very doable. Getting a conversion rate of say 10% would be getting kind of crazy. Getting to an average order value of 100 to 150, that's much harder. And then on the cost per click side, we know that we can get down to 50 to 75 cent cost per click. Can we get down to 10 to 15 cent? That's a whole nother discussion, but we know that these are numbers that we can hit, and we do, and our students hit them very consistently. So these are the ones that we're shooting for. We're not shooting to fix this equation by getting to a 10% conversion rate. We're not shooting to, fix this equation by getting $150 average order value. We're trying to hit these benchmarks, and we're trying to hit them in this order. And the reason that we do it in this order is because of this. So when we lower the cost per click by 50 cents, it gives us a 2.4 ROAS. If we lower it by another 25 cents, it takes us from a 2.4 to a 4.8. So these would take roughly like the same amount of effort. Now I'm not saying we won't improve the conversion rate or we shouldn't improve the average order value, but what I am saying is we want to make sure we're placing our focus in the order that it makes the most sense. So moving on to the metrics from the example. So they had a 1.88% conversion rate, $46 average order value, 42 cent cost per link click. So they're at a 2.07 ROAS. So then the question is, where should they place their focus? What should they be trying to improve out of this? Well, the simple way to figure it out, and this is what the calculator does for you, is look at the benchmarks. So if we go and I'm going to put these in the order. If we look first at their cost per link click, are they within range? Yes, they're better than in range. Then next we look at conversion rate, 2.5 to 3.5%. No, they're at a 1.88. Then average order value, $45 to $50. Yep, they're right in range. But they're only at a 2.07 ROAS, which again isn't bad, but we can get a lot better than that. So out of these three numbers, what should they be focusing on? The answer is conversion rate. And so conversion rate, if we get it to a 2.5%, which is very doable, that takes the ROAS from 2.07 to 2.76. Then if we increase it by another 0.5% to a 3, that takes, and everything else held constant, same number of shirts being bought on average, same cost of the traffic, that brings them up to a 3.3 ROAS. Then, and again, the calculator does this. The question is, okay, so we want to increase the conversion rate. So what number do we focus on? Because we learned that conversion rate is broken down into 3. It's the add to cart rate, then it's the reach checkout, then it's the sessions converted. So add to cart rate is at 6.27, but their reach checkout is at 2.33%, which that's a big drop off. We want this to be at 70% of that. So 6.27 times 0.7, that should be at a 4.39. So it should be almost double, about 80% higher than what it is right now. And again, not only should it be there, but we know it's very possible and very doable for us to get it there. So if we're able to increase this by almost double, that would close to double their conversion rate. Then I looked, in this example, I looked at their site to give them some suggestions on things that they can do to improve the reach checkout rate. But yeah, this is and we're going to get into like how we come up with these steps. And this is what the 200 some point conversion rate checklist is based off of. Yeah, this is the concept that if you take anything away from this whole course, let it be this. Because this not only applies to e-commerce and print on demand, but this applies to literally every business. It's what's the cost per session to your funnel, your landing page, whatever it is, and then how much do you make over the lifetime is one way to look at it, or on the first purchase, how much do you make earnings per session off of that person landing on the site. And if you just take the earnings divided by the cost, that gives you the ROAS. Then if you're looking at it and you're like, okay, I don't like the number that it's showing me, I'm getting a bad ROAS currently, what can I do to improve it? The answer is two things. Either I can increase the earnings or I can decrease the cost. Ideally, we'll do both, but you can only do one at a time. So if we decide, like, should I be getting my average order value up or my conversion rate, or is my cost too high and I need to get that down? And again, remembering that the reason we go after the cost first is, one, it's the biggest impactor. Like we could have a conversion rate average order value that's, 30-40% above industry average, but if our cost per click is still bad, it's not going to be profitable. Then second, we're able to optimize our earnings per session way easier when we have a lot of traffic coming in. So this is the concept to take away and apply, that this is like behind the scenes of the calculator. Down here, this is what we're going to go through next, looking at the checklist version, but there's different ways that you optimize each piece. It's like if you have high CPMs or high CPCs, high CPMs, low CTRs, low initiate checkouts, there's different things you can do for each step. Break it down into a funnel and make sure that you're placing your focus in the right area. And this is a concept that we didn't touch on nearly enough in the first course, is the decision making behind where should I be placing my focus, why, and what should I do. And so now we've covered where should it be focused, why should it be there, and this is the answer to the why. And next we're going to cover the what, which is what should we do once our focus is there, like what changes should we make, how do we run the test, and then how do we know when it's time to move on to the next one, like what's statistically significant, all that kind of stuff. So now that we've gone through the ROAS formula, we've completed the first step of our funnel optimization checklist. And now we're going to move into the step-by-step guide, about 205 steps in total, that will walk us through the variables and changes that we can make, or at the very least steps we can entertain in order to improve each one of these main metrics. So it's our cost per link click, our conversion rate optimization, and our average order value. And conversion rate optimization, CRO or just CR, doesn't really matter. Either term works. And goal of the cost per link click is how to decrease the cost of our traffic. Conversion rate optimization is how do we increase the sessions that convert into a purchase. And then average order value is how to increase the number of products people buy per purchase. And to help us in demonstrating this, we're going to go through all the items on the checklist. There we go. Along with looking at different sites that are like popular, like very successful, multiple 8-figure apparel / print on demand sites, so that along with seasonal collections, so that we're seeing a wide variety. We're seeing that it's not just one size fits all. There's lots of different ways to do this. And the important thing, the only thing that really matters, is that we're learning the skills and tools necessary in order to problem solve this once we get to this point ourselves. And everything that we're about to go through are things that have worked from our experience and things that we've seen have a big impact for students of ours, but is in no way a exhaustive list or just simply your checklist to follow along. And by the time you get to the bottom, it's all sunshines and rainbows, because things change. Back to the Rubik's Cube example, we need to be learning how to solve each layer and the tools that, and resources that we have available to help us with that. But fundamentally, it's not enough to just be following how we're moving the cube. We have to be, if anybody skipped over that section of the course, that metaphor probably sounds super confusing, but moral of the story, we need to learn fundamentally what impacts cost per link click, what impacts conversion rate, and what impacts average order value. So we just went through the why and the how via the ROAS formula. Now we're going through the what. So we're going to go through this in the order that we optimize in our stores, starting with cost per link click. So now we've learned how to, identify if cost per link click is the issue, which it's pretty straightforward. It's not really rocket science. We just explained all the back end stuff, but it doesn't have to be a complicated process. It's just, is my cost per link click greater than 75 cents? If the answer is yes, then the result is that is most likely your issue and most likely the thing that you have to work on. And this is also the step that has by far the most, variables at play. So it is very much expected that this will be a challenge, that this will take some time in order to get this right. So do not think that you will launch 100 designs and you will immediately get these results. One, don't think that because it won't be realistic. But two, by thinking that and setting that expectation for yourself, you're setting yourself up to fail and feel like you're a failure when in reality it's completely normal. So plan to be going through 2 to 3 cycles of like the BOB testing method or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's lots of different strategies, but basically you're going to launch 100 designs and your cost per link click is most likely going to be $1.50, $2.50, if not more. And if it's over, $2.50 to $3, normally you have to run a mock-up test. Then if it's under that, in the $1 to $1.50 range and you're looking for things to dial it in, long story short, normally it comes down to the mockup and the product, but we're going to give you a whole slew of things that you can troubleshoot in addition to that. And for anybody who's currently in the university, this is going to be like breath of fresh air for you guys because you've heard me say the same things over and over again. Now, this is flushing out everything that I could possibly say about how to lower cost per link click. But again, the answer is not changing. It is by far the biggest variable is always going to be your mockup and your product. But let's go through it. So cost per link click. To start off, let's recap. That cost per link click is simply our CPMs and our link click-through rate. So CPC equals CPM times CTR. Another thing to note is that the top 1% of advertisers split test 70 times more than the average person. So all of the ad copy and audiences and stuff that we're setting up to begin with, there's a million different things that you could test and things that are good ideas to test. And if you want to hone in on one thing, like what separates, Steph Curry from the rest of the shooters in the league, it's just the number of times that he's practiced, that he shot millions and millions of 3-point practice shots to make. We went over the stat in the foundations module, but he takes so many practice shots to be able to do what he does. The top 1% of advertisers split test 70 times more than the rest. That means they're making 70 times more ads. They're coming up with 70 times more ideas. And they're getting, they're finding, 60 plus different things that don't work in order to find the one thing that does work. So there are thousands of variables that impact cost per click. We have to keep focus on the highest leverage variables. And 9 times out of 10, when somebody has a high cost per click, it's because of one of two things. Number one, they either have bad mockups. So they blend in, meaning it's like white, low contrast against the newsfeed, and they don't represent the design well, so low perceived value. They look overly AI generated. Just overall, they're just bland and don't really look that, appealing, not that aesthetically pleasing. And I'm not saying this at anybody. I've made plenty of horrible mockups, but I've noticed a huge difference in our ads performance after just swapping out a bad mockup with a good one. And we talk about how to test different mockups and how to come up with them. So you have the tools to be able to do that. Second is they just have bad designs that don't belong on a t-shirt, or meaning that they're overly detailed, or concepts that just don't resonate with the audience. So this could be just bland either. And I'd say this one is the more common of the two, if I had to pick. Especially with AI nowadays, I see a lot of people using AI tools and making designs that look cool, but it's just got too much going on. It wouldn't really be something that somebody would want to have, 12 inches below their chin for 12 hours out of the day. Or they just have concepts that don't resonate with the audience. So if we are, selling ski designs, you could sell a design or a t-shirt that's just, line art of a pair of skis. And, it totally depends on your niche and the vibe that you're going for with your brand. But for the skier niche, that might not be the thing that resonates with them the most. Might for some of them, but something that resonates with them a lot more could be, that same line art, but then add in a funny quote or saying or inside joke related to the niche. That would be something that could resonate more. But that just comes down to a lot of testing. There's literally no way to know what's going to work before you actually launch it. And that should actually be an extra point on here, is that just assume you know nothing. And I abide by this all the time because I've been humbled again and again and again. Every time that I think a design is going to do well, it normally ends up doing pretty poorly, and vice versa. But the inverse is also true. When somebody has low cost per clicks, it's normally because of one of two things. One, they have a great mockup that stands out in the feed, looks super realistic, and does a good job of representing the design, increasing the perceived value. Then great designs is the second one, which are unique, original concepts that resonate with their audience, which leads to lots of engagement, shares, etc., which then leads Facebook to reward them with lower CPMs, which then leads to lower cost per clicks. This is an important thing to understand, which I'll explain now with the troubleshooting high CPMs. Why aren't people commenting, liking, or sharing my ads? So the reason that CPMs matter is because cost per click equals CPM times link click-through rate. It's not multiplications, but it's just a combination of these two. And so CPM has the biggest impactor. So CPM is cost per thousand impressions. The way that we lower it is a couple of different ways. The primary one is Facebook is in the business of keeping people on their platform, because when they keep users on their platform, then they're able to serve them more ads. When they're able to serve them more ads, then they're able to charge advertisers for those ad spots. So what does Facebook do? They want to incentivize advertisers to show high quality content, that because when their ad is high quality, something that people find interesting, then they're more likely to stay on the platform longer, which means they can serve more ads, so on and so forth. So how does Facebook tell if what you're showing is a high quality ad? It's what metrics does Facebook have access to? They can see how many people are liking, how many people are commenting, sharing, and watching your video ads. So engagement metrics is the answer. And so when Facebook sees a lot of engagement, then they rate that ad as like high quality. And then they go into that whole cycle that we just described, rewarding you with lower CPMs. And so the question that we want to answer is like, why aren't people commenting, liking, or sharing my ads? Because anytime I see somebody's CPMs and they're like $40, $50, $60, it's because of one of these things. Either A, they aren't getting people to stop scrolling long enough to even look at their ad, or B, their designs just don't resonate enough with the user. And so the solution to this is test new design concepts that resonate with your audience. And the ideal reaction we want is from customers to go, wow, like this is so me, I have to show ... Not in so many words, but this is like a general explanation of the experience we want them to have. We don't want them just looking at our ad and going, yeah, that's a t-shirt, and then just scrolling by. We want it, the goal that we're after is gripping them and making them feel like this brand, this niche, like this mock-up, this specific product was made specifically for them and nobody else. Once you figure that out, once you crack that code, then you get insane engagement. Because when somebody feels like an ad or a product really speaks to them, then it gets them to want to, and I'll just jump to this part here, it gets them to want to share with their friends. Because what are the reasons that people share things? It's because of the perception that other people will have of them when they share that. And the emotions that people like to feel after sharing something is either feeling like they're funny. They think that it'll make their friends' perception of them change and think of them as being funny, being clever, well-informed, unique, or like connecting, like if it's something that like an inside joke or something that they have in common. And a perfect example of this is that some of History Tease's bestsellers, in my opinion, became bestsellers because they required at least some level of history knowledge in order to quote unquote get the designs. And like the zone that I found to be the sweet spot is when somebody looks at your design, having like a split second where there's like where they have to process looking at the design before they actually get it. Like Lincoln 5-star review, like it grabbed people's attention because they recognize the figure, but then they look at the joke and there's like that split second pause where they have to think about it. And then once they get the joke, then they feel like they're smart, like they want to tag their friends, share it with them, see if they get the joke. Like I can't tell you how many History Tease ads we got with comments from people literally saying, I'm buying this because of all the confused looks I know I'm going to get. I'm like, thank you for that perfect window into your soul. Now I know exactly what to show you more of. And there was so many comments like that. And that's not just true for History Tease. That's true for, Yoga Stay. When we had sayings that were, yogi related or like inside joke related, those did extremely well there too. And on our 0 to 7 figure brand, we see the exact same thing. And now that's just to demonstrate an example of a way that you can lower CPMs. It's not saying that every single design, far from it. It's not saying every single design needs to be, some kind of inside joke or, secret handshake that only your niche gets. That's just one way you can do it. Like for example, in seasonal collections, those minimalist line art designs, they were getting decent engagement from people. I personally wasn't having a lot of fun running it, but we were getting, if I was going to continue running that store, then that would be the direction that I would head in, is more minimalist line art. That honestly, that brand was, to me, wasn't that fun to run, so we stopped. But yeah, that's one devil's advocate point, is that it doesn't have to be just that. Like there's lots of different ways, but that's really the thing that we're going after. Another thing you can do is test new design concepts that resonate with your audience, test more engaging creatives, and test larger audiences. And a note on mock-ups that I want to show quickly when it comes to the ad creative, and this worked really well as ad creative for a couple of main reasons. So it didn't have this 40% off thing here. So the reason that this mockup did so well, and to give you frame of reference, this took us like a couple of weeks of back and forth with designers before we really got this dialed in. But the reason that this mockup did well is, number one, looking at the contrast of the news feed, which is just like a white background, compared to the mockup, it's extremely high contrast. So this wood stands out. I actually just noticed that this panel is thicker than that one. It's thicker than all the rest. Anyway, that's really funny. I've seen this mockup at least 10,000 times, and that's the first time I've noticed this. Learned something new. But anyway, so high contrast from the background to the newsfeed. And the second high contrast that we want is from the t-shirt to the background. So as you're scrolling down your feed, this grabs your attention, gets you to stop scrolling. This area first catches your attention, then your eyes are immediately drawn to the t-shirt, and then the design is centered, takes up the majority of the print space, very easy to read, and you get the gist of the product very quickly. It's very, clean aesthetically. Then additional pieces, all these supporting objects down here, none of these were just randomly placed. We tested dozens and dozens of variations of this mockup, including everything from what kind of pattern we're going to have printed on the yoga mat, the placement of the beads, like if they should be further out versus in. Like for example, one of the versions we had was the beads were like touching the shirt, and we decided to go against that because as you're looking at the design here and your eyes scan down, if you see something that's like breaking through like this, there's some technical design terms for this that I haven't learned, but I've just done it, so I feel it to be true. That like if you have this bead like overlaying this section, then your eyes get drawn to that, and then it like breaks you out and then just goes down to the yoga pants down here. And we don't want that. We want it to be supporting but keeping your gaze where we actually want it. And that's why all of the objects, we also tested like different colors of flowers so that they supported versus distracted. Like we found having the flowers be a similar color to the yoga mat was nice because we had flowers that are like a different color, and then it added too many different colors to the mock-up, and it made it too busy. Whereas when they're the same, just nicely complements, and it also acts as a barrier to push your view back in here. And that's what I was starting to get at, is all of the objects are specifically or intentionally placed down here so that as you're scrolling, your eyes don't get blocked by them, but they get caught. So notice as I scroll down, your eyes go from here down to here, and as they drift down, these almost act as like barriers to push you back up and look at it again. Opposed to picture if the yoga mat, pants, flowers were all at the top, those would be barriers that your mind would have to like basically, push past in order to get there. So it's those subtle things. And again, this is back to examples versus concepts versus step by step. This is just an example. This is an example where you can pull some concepts out of it. This is in no way me saying you have to use this color wood and you have to use bright heather color shirts and you have to have beads that are halfway covered, that's none of that. Like it needs to be something that looks good for your brand. The important thing, and you can look at lots of other examples and analyze it the same way that I just did. Or if you don't think you can analyze it like that, plug it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT will amaze you with the things that it's able to come up with in terms of like design analysis. So back over to the checklist. When we are troubleshooting low click-through rates, last thing on this is, so this design, this one in particular got high CPMs, or got low CPMs. It got a high engagement rate. But if I were to take this exact same mock-up and then swap out the design, I would get a completely different CPM. Say if I just did something random that made no sense. If this shirt just said heavily on it, and I took out the lotus and I took out the meditated, completely, that would be bizarre, makes no sense, but it's a silly example to demonstrate an important point, which is that the CPM, it's partially from the mock-up, but it's not like, the mock-up, if once you get the mock-up to be really good, then you're only looking at like $20 or less CPMs, and then it's just on the good design to make like the last $5 to $10 difference. It's not like that at all. It's all or nothing. Like having a really good mock-up is the prerequisite for getting lower CPMs, yes. However, the design is what will get you there. Like if I did just heavily, people would think we're a weird company, rightfully so, and nobody would like it. Maybe they make fun of us a little bit, and then they just move on. So the point we're demonstrating there is that it's the design and the mock-up in tandem that lowers the CPMs. And a lot of it comes down to the design concept more than anything. Like I would take a really good design concept over a well executed design any day of the week. Like as long as it's 80-20 principle, it's not like, just completely garbage, but the concept is what really sells. Like picture the LinkedIn, the Lincoln 5-star review. If you just swap out like the font style or like maybe rearrange the font placement a little bit, it's still definitely a top selling design. So, but then if you take out Lincoln and you make it some other joke and use that exact same style, probably not as good of a seller. So when we're troubleshooting our low click-through rates, we want to be answering the question, why are people commenting, liking, sharing, engaging, but not clicking on the ad? So once we fix the CPMs, we know that, we're getting engagement, but the answer is that they like the design, but are not incentivized / convinced enough to click right now. So we want to increase urgency, scarcity. To help demonstrate this point, here's one of the slides from the presentation we just went through. Like, why are people engaging but not clicking on the ad? Well, a couple of things. We want to be testing new offers / ad copy, test new headlines or link descriptions. We want to show social proof, guarantees, product quality, etc. Use well-placed, tactful emojis to accentuate key points about your product / offers. We only care about getting the cost per clicks down to 50 to 75 cents. Once we achieve that, we don't care about what the CPMs or CTRs are. And gotten this question a couple times, so I want to explain like the math behind it. Is that it's very normal to see direct correlation between your CPMs and your CTRs, meaning that as your cost per thousand impressions drops, it's very normal to also see our click-through rate drop. And this is not something to be concerned about. The way to know if we're heading the right direction or not is to look at the cost per clicks. But the reason that this is not something to be concerned about is, and it makes sense if you just think about it yourself, like if you say our CPMs are, let's say $20 per 1,000 sessions. Then let's say that our CPMs drop to $5. So that means for $20 up here, we're getting 1,000 sessions. For $20 down here, same amount of money, we're getting 4,000 sessions. So during that time, it would be very normal for us to see a link click-through rate of say 3%. Go down to 1.5%. Because we're getting so many more sessions, there's so many more people coming down the highway that it would make, like, even if we're just maintaining, since this number is increasing so much, even if we're just maintaining or our link click-through rate doesn't drop at the exact same ratio as the CPM, then we're in good shape. Like in this example, let's say that so if we were at 2% and $20 CPM, that would mean that our cost per click equals $1 at first. So $20, 2% click-through rate, that's $1 CPC. Then after our CPM gets dropped by fourth, if our CTR stayed the same, then we'd be looking at 25-cent cost per clicks. But since it dropped by 25%, I'm doing myself. This is some math right here. This dropped by a factor of 4, but this dropped by a factor of 2. So rather than looking at if this stayed the same, then it would be 25-cent cost per clicks. But since this dropped by a factor of 2, then it's 50-cent cost per clicks. So easier way to put this is if we just look at these examples here. What we just did essentially is just this. Just showed like what the drop is by looking at CPM and the CTR, or this right here. So reason that it's nothing to worry about that your CTRs drop as your CPMs drop. And this is, again, the fundamental concept takeaway is like the relationship between these metrics and how they all work together. And it took me years and years to learn or to fundamentally understand this right here, which is that as long as CPMs are dropping at a higher rate than the CTRs, then we're in good shape. But really, the only thing that you have to really be watching is, are my cost per clicks heading in the right direction? Again, all this back-end math is just good. We're just going over this so you understand everything. Just like anything, when you're learning a new concept, it's important to understand all the inner workings. But then in the day-to-day, the things you end up actually using is much more surface level than that. But it's not enough for us to just understand the surface level, because then we don't fundamentally understand like why we're not pursuing other things and why the surface level is what we're doing, if that makes sense. Then yeah, I'll go through the ad structure in a second. But so campaign structures. So for the testing campaign, we use USA targeting, purchase optimize, ad set budget optimization. We use this campaign as our bullpen for testing out new ads. And important, this is just a reminder, everything can be split tested. Ad copy, audiences, creatives. Remember to place your focus on the most important variables, which is your ad creative, product / mockups, ad copy / headlines, and then your audiences last. Then our main CBO is USA targeting, purchase optimize, campaign budget optimization. And again, breaking down these fancy sounding buzz terms, they're really nothing. This is just telling Facebook what countries do we want to show. We do USA in the beginning because logistics is much easier selling to one country than many. Second, we're telling Facebook what kind of people do we want to get. Do we want people who just click and look at a lot of stuff, or do we want people that actually purchase? And more importantly, do we want you to, learn who's purchasing on the site and then send us more of those people? Or do we want you, Facebook, to just send us more people who click around? Obviously, we just want them to send more people who actually purchase. Then campaign budget optimization. So we talked about ad set versus campaign budget. It's just, if I have 5 ad sets and I give them a $10 each budget, it's going to manually spend that $10 on each one, opposed to if I set a campaign budget of $50, it's going to decide on its own how it wants to split up that 50 to get us the most bang for our buck. And a reminder for the main CBO is that we only use this campaign after you found 2 to 3 winning ads that consistently maintain a 2.0 plus ROAS after a 7 to 14 day period. Now, if somebody showed me a campaign or a testing campaign where they're at a 3 to a 4 ROAS, would I say still wait the 7 to 14 days? Absolutely not. So there's nuance to all of this. These are just general principles that I've learned are important to clarify after working with a lot of people. But the main concept to take away from this is that in our overall approach to ads is we test out a bunch of different stuff. Again, 70 times more testing is done by the 1% in the testing campaign. And then we just take the best of the best and plant that in the main CBO. And the speed, the 7 to 14 days or however long it takes you to, be able to start using the main CBO is just however long it takes you to test and find your way through to, at least 2 to 3 winning ads. And it's very normal for it to take at least 2 to 3 testing cycles before finding enough winners to start this campaign. Then ad creatives. So ad creatives, a couple of notes is they need to stop people from scrolling on the feed. So i.e. show them something that they like enough that they then look at the ad copy. We want to use high contrast colors, should stand out from the rest of the content people see on their feed. So avoid using blues / whites since these are the most common colors on Facebook. Product should be clearly displayed as the focal point of the ad creative, i.e. like where is your eye drawn to when you first look at the ad. And a good test for this and for just evaluating it in general is just doing exactly what we were doing on Yoga Stay. Just scroll up to the top and scroll down and just objectively ask yourself, like, where are my eyes drawn when I first looked at this? And obviously this is not like an exact science. It's not like, until the only thing you see is the design, keep iterating. It's just yet another tool that you can use to help give yourself feedback and know where you can improve. Then example ad creatives, we have the static product ad, which is the one we just looked at on Yoga Stay, the carousel ad, slideshow video ad, which that's where you upload 10 different images and then it cycles through each of them for you. Then we have the grid ad. I actually really like this one. Super easy to make on Canva. There's no exact, template to recommend. Like the 3x3 grid works well. The one where it's one big, like it takes up 4 squares and then, there's 5 around it. That one does well. UGC image, which is like customer submitted photos, and then lifestyle mockups, like the ones that they have on Placeit. Then in terms of ad copy, so there's first, second, and third line. We tend to use shorter form ad copy. And again, these are just examples. These are not me saying this is the only thing that you should be using. Far from it. Please don't. Please test your own stuff. Like, I would go so far as to say it's a requirement. This is your homework assignment to come up with your own concept and test it during this testing phase, following something that completely breaks the mold of what we talk about. Now, breaking the mold in smart ways versus, reinventing the wheel is a very fine line, But little things that you should not break the wheel on is little stuff like using the shorter URL. Like that's just a good best practice. But things you absolutely can break the wheel on and test new stuff is these offers here. Like 15% off, that's about as lazy of a starter offer as you could hope for. Then other things you could break the mold on are like these headlines. These are things that have worked well for us. I've seen some mistakes where people put like $75 plus free shipping, and I'll show why I say that's a mistake, but follow these concepts. So first line, it should be attention grabbing and address the niche/audience. So an example of that is 5 stars, 75,000 plus history tees sold, new history tees collection with well-placed emojis. That would be a good line. So it grabs people's attention because it has a couple of emojis, and then it speaks to the niche or the audience by addressing, well, in this case, the brand name was in there, and Yoga Stay was actually the same, like new Yoga Stay collection, or you could say new Yoga Tees collection, a lot of different, and that's something where if you really wanted to, you could split test new yoga t-shirt sale, new yoga tees sale, and you could do like one emoji. So you could do like new yoga tee sale, or new yoga t-shirt collection, new yoga apparel collection, or you could say spring yogi collection, depending on the time of year, and then try out different emojis. So there, just in 2 seconds, we came up with 5 different versions of things we could split test as the attention grabber. But again, keeping in mind the most important things to be testing and where you'll have the biggest impact is in order that the user consumes ads, which is this order. They first look at the product or the ad creative, then they look at the design, then they look at the headline, then they go back up here to the ad copy, and then they look down at the link description. If they do it all, then they decide if they're going to click shop now or not. And so the general mindset or unconscious thought process behind users looking at an ad is scrolling down, this grabs their attention. They go, oh, what's that? Or what the hell is that? Then they look at the design, and if it's something that resonates with them, then they go down to the headline, the biggest font, to see like, what is this all about? And then if that passes their test and it's not something cheesy or corny or unexpected in like a put off way, like a bad thing to say here would be like 75% off or like, funny t-shirts, like something just generic when you have like a brand and a niche. That would be something bad, or something with a lot of emojis. There's a lot of different ways you can mess it up, but just keeping it clean and simple, and either doing the product title or addressing the niche or the offer are pretty safe bets. And then back to their thread of thought, then they go up to the ad copy and they read the first line, which should be, again, addressing the niche, grabbing their attention. Then the second line is the urgency or scarcity or reason for them to shop now. And then a link and like a call to action for them to shop now. Then the final one is their CTA button down here, and then the link description. And the link description is their last stop if they look at it at all before the CTA. And that's where we want to build credibility or social proof, or give them some reason to like trust us more. So that's the order that you should be optimizing, is like the ad creative, headline, and ad copy is kind of in tandem, then the link description, and then the CTA button. And the CTA button, I can save you time. We've always just done the shop now button. So first line, attention grabber that addresses the niche/audience. Second line, urgency, scarcity / discount. Then third line, CTA and link to buy. Headline, product name, restate the niche / collection, grab attention. Then link description should build trust / credibility. CTA, shop now button. And then that's the sequence that they shop in. And again, this is what we would call short form ad copy, where it's 3 lines. There's lots of companies, and we've done this for you, where you can go look at what the top 10 or so apparel sites are using for their ad copy, and then use that as a tool for your own learning. Like, this is just one example of what has worked well for us and some of our students, but you should 100% be coming up with your own ideas, because that's how you're going to learn the best. Like, you're going to learn far more when you come up with your own ad copy, like have a reason or strategy behind it that you think it'll work, even if that strategy is just plugging this into ChatGPT. Like even if we just did something like this. Yeah, and then tell it to write 10 more. And there you go. It just gave us 10 new ad copies. And you will learn far more from reading through. And ChatGPT is obviously just one way you can come up with them, but you will learn way more. I'll say from personal experience, I've learned way more from when I came up with my own original ideas. Follow the framework to understand like the ins and outs, but then once I started iterating and coming up with my own ideas, which you all have ideas. Even if this is your very first time ever running ads, you're like, I still barely know what a CPC is. That's okay. It's a process, number one. So accept that it's going to take time to learn it, but a lot less time than you might think. And especially when you consider that I've learned by far the most by coming up with my own ideas and then testing them and then seeing the results of those ideas. Because like in the beginning, you just don't know what's good and what's bad. And the only way that you're going to learn is by coming up with your own ideas and then testing it. And the way that you would test something like this is you just go over here. So say if we had like say if I wanted to test like a new ad copy. So if I want to test a new ad copy, what I would do is I would make a new ad set within this testing campaign. Yeah, just pretend like this is in that campaign. Like that. I would set it for, I don't know, $10 a day budget, and I would make 4 to 5 static ads in there. And I would use the same exact ad creative on all of them because I want to isolate all the variables. So this would be the same ad. And then I would just swap out the ad copy on each. And then I would let it run for a day or two and then see what the results are. And if one of them is getting significantly cheaper cost per link clicks than the rest, then I would use that as a winner. I might test it again further by putting that ad copy across a bunch of new static ads. And then eventually I would find a winner from doing that. And then I would start using that one on my cold traffic ads. And you could have multiple, winning ad copies. We've had that in the past, but that's just one example of like, I'm saying to test a lot. Like here's an example of how you would test. And then say, maybe you want to test, a new headline. We'll say that ad copy 1 became your control. Then you'd start using that ad copy. And the way that, I'll rule a test as a winner when, it's spent. It depends on the test, but at least $10 to $20 on the test, and I should have at least like 10 to 20 link clicks by that point. But there's nuance to it. Like if I'm seeing horrible results and it's spent $12 and gotten 0 link clicks, then I'll just pause the whole test and just reevaluate things. But if I'm seeing decent results like $2 to $3 cost per link clicks after the first $6 to $7, 6 to 7. Then I might let it run a little bit longer. But say I wanted to test a new headline, then I would just take like that. Then so I isolated the ad copy, using that across all of them, already using my best static ad, and then I would test the headlines next, and then rinse and repeat that process. And once I get to having a couple of ads that are running at consistently 50 to 75 cent cost per clicks, then I'll more or less stop doing that. I'll always test with like 5 to 10% of budget in the testing campaign, but it's not like I would keep doing that. I would keep testing, but my number one priority, once I find something that's running at like a 2+ ROAS consistently, 2 to 3 of them, my priority is then to very quickly move into this cold US CPO. Quick tangent, but next, audiences that we can test: open targeting, lookalikes, interest-based, and demographic. These are different audiences that you can test. I can say confidently that even still to this day, after testing a bunch of different interests and lookalikes, open targeting still performs the best for us and gets the cheapest CPCs. All right, next we're going into conversion rate optimization. And this is where we're going to be referencing a lot of competitor sites and showing what they do. And again, conversion rate optimization is not a silver bullet. It's not like check the boxes once and then you're good for forever. It's a constant like habit and something that we revisit all the time. The good news is that conversion rate optimization is much more formulaic. Like, I know I just said it's not check the boxes, but it is much more like you pretty much make sure you have the best practices, and then it's much more of like every change you make results in a 1% improvement, whereas cost per clicks, it can be you try 100 things and get 0 change, and then on the 101st you get a huge change. So all that to say, it is slightly easier, but there's still a lot to it, as you can see. And this is broken up into the general section, then add to cart, then reach checkout or initiate checkout, and then checkouts converted. And then we'll go over AOV last. So general CRO things to keep in mind. Number one, fast loading. We want to ensure that all of our main pages load in under 5 seconds. Speed is crucial for conversions. This is one that you can test with just using different site speed test tools. Like the way that I test this is I just pull up 3 of them, throw in your URL here, here, and here, and then just watch what it says, and it'll tell you if you need to improve something. But the reason I'm not going to harp on that too long is that as long as you're following what we laid out in the course in terms of the apps, and you're not going crazy adding 10, 20 new apps that we don't really talk about, then you should be fine. And you will add other apps in the future. I'm not saying never add another app, but just keep in mind that apps are the primary thing that slows down your site. So just keep an eye on that. And the way you'll know if this is impacting your performance or not is when you're using your D2C marketing stats spreadsheet. You'll be able to see if your number of link clicks to your sessions, if there's a big discrepancy. Like if your site speed is really slow, then you'll see like a 50 to 60% stick rate. Like if you send 100 link clicks, you'll see like 50 to 60 sessions. A normal one is if you send 100 link clicks, you'll see 70 to 85 sessions. So if it gets much further below that, then you know that you have to look into something. And normally it's just like deleting apps, making sure that you have crush picks installed, that sort of thing. Next, every page has a CTA, include clear call to actions, even on secondary pages like About Us, FAQs, 404, blog posts. Next, clickable designs, make buttons obviously interactive and label them with verbs like shop now or get yours today. So this is color isolation. We want the CTA button to clearly stand out. Let's take a look at what are some of the other sites doing. So like on ours, we have that. Let's see what Busted Tees does. They have the green rounded one. Then Wicked Clothes. They just do the black one. Then Into the AM, I think, is the same. Yeah, black rounded. So there's a couple of interesting takeaways. It's that 2 out of the 4 have the rounded button. 2 out of the 4 were the black add to cart button. And we'll go through more of the specifics in a second, but a couple of initial interesting takeaways. Next, mobile friendly. Space out buttons and forms to avoid accidental clicks on smaller screens. 80% of traffic comes from mobile, so that's why we're looking at them on mobile. It's really the only thing that matters. Upsell post-purchase, so offer relevant upsells between checkout and the thank you page without requiring additional payment details. So a lot of these things on this list are just general best practices and things that help conversion rate in general. So this one we haven't talked about a lot because that's really boosting your average order value, which there's a lot of different ways to do that, but that's something you could test. And something that we're considering testing right now is a post-purchase gift card upsell. So when somebody checks out, they complete their purchase, they've already entered their payment info. When they reach the thank you page, rather than it being the thank you page, they'll land on a page that says, wait, like special one-time offer, get a $100 gift card for $80. And if, even 20% of people take that, that increases our average order value by $20. Or no, that would increase it by $16. So that's an example of something you could do as a post-purchase upsell. Next, sticky logo navigation. Keep your logo consistently placed top left on all pages, linking back to the home page. Time appropriate pop-ups. Ensure that your pop-ups only appear when the visitor is engaged with the site, not immediately. So we want this to be either exit intent or second page load. The point is, we want your exit intent pop-up, it should not load like the second that somebody hits your site. It should be after a short delay. Then next is site-wide offers. So use a top bar, like your announcement bar across the top here. So free shipping on order 75 plus to create urgency and provide direct links to shop. Then navigation, keep navigation broad with easily accessible categories. This is not as big of an impactor in the beginning. Like your categories or collections are fine, just being very short and simple. Even if your navigation was just home, shop, about us, and contact, because what you don't want to have happen is in the beginning, you start splintering your focus between like 4, 5, 6 different collections, and then you're driving traffic to each of them. You basically end up optimizing like 6 different stores in one without even realizing it, because it feels like you're just doing one. But we want to keep all of our focus placed on just making one collection. So all of our traffic is driving there. And I'm mentioning it for the navigation because you don't really have to worry about this, in my opinion. You can obviously set up multiple categories if you like, but just in terms of what I've seen drive the most impact, the number of categories and collections and product types is not it. Next, logical ordering. Prioritize product categories over corporate info in the menu. So just have shop above about us or contact. Sticky navigation. Always visible navigation ensures customers can search or view the cart without scrolling. So the way we do this is, notice up here at the top, when I scroll back up even slightly, see how it shows the bar with the menus. Next, search bar. Place the search bar, and all the search stuff, even on our $1 million a year store, we've received at most a couple hundred searches per month. So these are good things to keep in mind, but not like, if your conversion rate is low, optimizing your search bar is not going to be the thing that takes you from 2 to 3% conversion rate. Autocomplete suggestions. We do this automatically. Friendly no results message. Ensure frequently searched items, which you can see from looking at the analytics in your Shopify, what people are searching for. You want to make sure that they're showing highly relevant results. And search hints. Provide examples like search for funny mug or XL hoodie. Mobile friendly. Make the search box long enough to handle mobile inquiries, which again, the default, we show that. The only thing that we don't have here is the recommended searches. Then the cart widget. Easy access. The cart icon should always be visible in the top right corner. So like this right here. Let's see, I think all of them do that. Except Busted doesn't have the scroll back up navigation. That's interesting. What does Wicked Close do? They always have it. Then Into the AM also always has it. Then shipping incentives. Highlight how close customers are to free shipping. And this is in the cart widget, like here. So Into the AM does the cart drawer. Let's see what, yeah. Wicked Close does the cart drawer. I think Busted does too. Yep. Everybody does the cart drawer. Now what Wicked does that's interesting is they don't do free shipping. They do, what is it? It's like 70, get a $25 sticker pack. It's some nice stickers for every order over $75. So they try a slightly different version. Probably ends up being cheaper for them actually. And then, if rather than offering free shipping, and interesting, Wicked Close doesn't do anything. Maybe that's because right now they're doing their holiday sale. And Into the AM, this is what we're talking about. They do the free shipping, ships next business day. So it's a loading bar showing how close they are. Then upsell on an empty cart. So this is one that we have where if I delete the products from the cart, see how it shows all products or continue shopping. Those are the buttons that we're talking about having on the pages, like the empty pages. Then quick checkout links. So ensure both view cart and checkout option are accessible. So Busted doesn't have it. Yeah, actually none of them have the view cart button. All of them just show the checkout button. Then in the footer, highlight your store benefits, include a back to top button. Let's see if one of these has it. No, they don't. But a back to top button, that would be like a little arrow, like when people scroll all the way down to the bottom, you show them like a little arrow that shoots them back up to the top. There's apps that can do that. Next, this is a good one to have, trust and contact info. So show trust badges and contact details like email or phone. Into the AM, I think, does this the best. So they have, support icons, and then they talk about the company, and then if you want to contact them. Into the AM, I think, does one of the best jobs in terms of their site layout. Also really interesting that they don't do any mock-ups. It's just flat. Like there's a big difference though, big difference between this mock-up and how high quality this looks versus like the Printify just blank mock-up. That's pretty cool. Then remove the Powered by Shopify branding. So you'll have this, actually if you use the theme that we gave you, it's possible that it updates it, but it may not because it's in your settings, but it'll say Shop Powered by Shopify at the bottom. We just want to take that off. And there's lots, if you just Google how to remove Powered by Shopify branding, there's lots of tutorials that'll show you, like guide you through that. Then category links, again, this is one we don't really have to worry about until we have more collections down the road. Then PUD specific tips, overall mockup quality. What do you want to ensure that your navigation, search, and cart widgets prominently feature your design mockups. Seasonal promotions, use urgency-based language in the top bar. So if you're running like a Black Friday sale or holiday sale or something of the sort, you can add that in addition to the free shipping bar. Then cross sells, recommend complementary designs, and localized elements, use concurrency and language appropriate for the primary audience. This we do once you've passed 10K in sales and you want to add on international. And we cover how to set that up. Next, focus on storytelling, incorporating messaging in the footer of product pages about the story behind your designs. For example, like eco-friendly production or community impact. So this is a prime example of what we're sharing is just an example to get started. Like if you're noticing that your add to cart rate is low and you're looking at things you can do to improve it, and you're like, I feel like I've already checked all the boxes. I've done exhaustive research on every other site, and I feel like I've emulated all of the best practices, which I almost guarantee you haven't. But if you feel like you have, and I say that very confidently because I haven't done that, and I've spent tens of thousands of hours doing this. And every time I look at a competitor's site, I always see something new that they're doing that I could add that I'm just haven't tested yet. But if you are looking for things to improve, something that you can add is a good section like this. It talks about like a charitable donation or way that you're giving back as a brand. This also builds a ton of proof and like branding. This is a really nice line. So not only saying we like congrats to us, we did 1 million orders, saying thank you to the customers. So that's like perfect. Into the AM does this with, a section that talks about what it